So when you talk about permission, the 26, and I want to assume put myself in that category. Do we give ourselves that permission that you're talking about? Because we're obviously not getting it externally.
I think giving yourself the permission is absolutely the ultimate way, and some do. The ones who don't generally need it from another, and on some subconscious level, they have been waiting for that permission for a long time and never have received it. But yes, the ultimate way is to give it to yourself.
And what does it take for me to do that? Because last time we talked about coaching, right? And you also had a wonderful discourse about the coach and the teacher. And one of the things I take away from that is you saying something like the teacher who needs a student to succeed will ultimately fail, right? It's that desire to want it more for them than they do for themselves.
Yes.
So what does it take then if I can't get it, give it to myself internally, and I do need that coach? What am I looking for from her or him?
Permission.
Why am I going to believe them and not believe myself? What the hell is missing?
Yeah. I think we as human beings have within us certain receptors for truth, and our mind does not understand it oftentimes, but our feelings do. And so it is very often the case that if you hear something of truth, that the human being will say, I can't explain it, and it doesn't even make sense, but I can just feel that that's true. And that's my answer to your question. So the more that a person gives himself permission to divorce himself from the norms and the cultures, the more that he will give more credence to the things, to the voices inside of him, as opposed to the voices outside of him.
I know you have given yourself permission. Do you listen to anybody else?
Yes. In coming across some of the words of the ancient Eastern masters, from the Tao and from many of the ancient China, ancient Japan. There are absolute truths that are very inspiring to me. So yes, those are people. It's not a matter of listen. There's nothing to do, but in having come across those words, recognize them as being truth. But is there anyone that I listen to or follow? I'm always, if there's something that I'm interested in, I'm looking for the person who is the truth speaker of that field. And so
how do you define truth speaker? Like when you say truth speaker, how does that look like?
You just know. You just know. When you read an article, you know if it's coming at you from an angle or not. I can tell you usually in the first paragraph if someone has an angle or not. And so whatever. See, as long as someone has a stance, right, which says this is what I want you to believe, and this is what I want to convince you of, and here's my evidence, and that's usually false. It really is. I think truth comes about when someone just discusses something and says, almost in the vein of, this is kind of the way it is, and I don't need you to believe me, and I don't get anything if you do believe me, and I don't even want you to believe me, and don't even do what I say. When you get that kind of feeling, you generally move towards the truth. That direction, as opposed to here's the 5 steps and all this. So it's a feeling. It's a feeling. I can tell in talking to someone that someone who's relatively quiet and just says things as they are, and doesn't really have an angle to convince you of. I think the desire to convince is the greatest, perhaps, marker of fraudulence.